All right, we're back from the break. My man, Seany J, who you got this week for our Lions, our pride profile?
Today, I'd like to talk to you about a Lion who didn't play very long with us, but his years were very productive. From 2003 to 2006, I talk about Mr. Dre Bly. Now, I met Dre Bly in person when he was in town here. He has his own radio show. I used to call in on a regular. I went to the Big Boy restaurant where he did the broadcast from a couple of times. And meet him, really nice guy, him and Jim Brandstatter, who was still with the Lions at the time. You know what? I call so much. I tell you, I used to call the radio station so much, especially the Lions shows like that. They were waiting for my call. They expected my call, I was very popular. Shout from Detroit, Anyway, the profile of Dre Bly, he was born May 22nd, 1977, Chesapeake Bay, Virginia. He won the Stars All-American at the University of North Carolina. His junior season, he had a record 13 interceptions in one season. He came out after his junior season and was drafted by the St. Louis Rams in the second round in 1999. He was there as a member of the Rams Super Bowl championship winning team with Kurt Warner and the greatest show on turf. He was all-pro performer for the St. Louis Rams from 99 to 2002. In 2003, when Steve Mariucci was hired by the Lions, he wooed his Lions' first big free agent signing, Dre Bly, who had a good thing going in St. Louis, and he got him to come over to the Lions, a big sign track, and he right away was a hit. In his 4 seasons with the Lions, he was an All-Pro 2 times. However, all the losing kind of frustrated. He left a good situation in St. Louis and moved his family here for this, where the Lions did not have one single winning season. He was one of Joey Harrison's biggest critics. He said, the team we better, they got better quarterback play. So obviously, who was he talking about at the time? If I can regress, I still say it wasn't all Joey's fault, but the quarterback gets to blame when things going bad, just like the head coach. Dre Bly, after the 2006 season, he left the Lions. He was traded to the Denver Broncos, where he played 2 seasons, 2007, 2008. He returned to Ford Field in 2007 with the Broncos, and where the Lions mollywopped them, blew them out, and included a big interception return for a touchdown by Big Sean Rogers. He had some wheels. You remember that game when Sean Rogers returned the interception? Yes. I mean, he moved fast for a 350-pound guy, Yes. Dre Bly played 1 full season, his last full season NFL, 2009, with the San Francisco 49ers. He came back to the Lions in a preseason in 2010. I was happy to see him back. He had a big pick in the preseason that year, but for whatever reason, Jim Schwartz decided to cut him, go with some younger guys. Dre retired from the NFL after that, and today he's the defensive back at his alma mater, University of North Carolina. Dre Bly is one of my favorite Lions. I got to meet him personally. I called him his radio show the 4 years he was here doing it. I called him today. I'm sure you remember me. I like Dre Bly. He's one of my favorite Lions. I wish they had more success from here, because they, once again, the Lions wasted the time and talent of another great player, as they so often done. I hate saying that. I love my Lions, but they wasting talent, like with Barry Sanders and Stafford and Dre Bly and others. I really wish the Lions get this shit together. I'm sorry. But that's this week's profile of Mr. Dre Bly.
All right. Thank you, my man. All right. Now it's time for Now You Know. We'll be back after this.
Now You Know is brought to you by Foster Camera Solutions. For your home or business security needs, call Dan at Foster Camera Solutions for a free estimate at 248-672-8640. With no monthly fees and self-monitoring from your smartphone, computer, or tablet, let Foster Camera Solutions design a security camera system that fits your needs. You can also visit their Facebook page for more information at facebook.com/Foster Camera Solutions. Remember, Foster Camera Solutions when securing your home or business. What up, though? This is Kurt Steele, and welcome to this week's edition of Now You Know. This week, we're going to cover the 10-second runoff rule. We're going to show you how it's applied, break it down for you, and give you some examples of when this rule has applied to the detriment of the Lions. So let's get into it. The 10-second runoff option exists to prevent one team from taking advantage of its own penalty or injury by stopping the clock without using a timeout. If the game has 10 or fewer seconds left, a runoff can end the game. But we'll get to that a little bit later. A team can spend a timeout to prevent a 10-second runoff. It works the same way in college and the NFL. However, this is a Lions podcast, so we're going to focus on the NFL rules. For the 10-second runoff rule to be activated, you need three things. One, you need one of these: an injury timeout, a player's helmet coming off during a play and not due to a foul, or an accepted penalty for one of a number of fouls. If the penalty yardage is declined, the 10-second runoff is declined as well. However, if any of these things happen to both teams on the same play, there is no option for a 10-second runoff. Two, the incident in question has to happen in the last minute of the half. There cannot be a runoff in the other 58 minutes of the game. The final minutes of the first and third quarters do not apply for the 10-second runoff. And three, most complicated, the injury, helmet, or foul issue is the only reason the clock is stopped. If the clock is not running when the foul occurs, there is no 10-second runoff for that injury or helmet issue. Now, the fouls that can cause a 10-second runoff are the kind seemingly designed to gain an unfair advantage and to stop the clock: intentionally grounding or an incomplete illegal pass. For example, if the offense throws an illegal forward pass to a tight end, number 88, and he drops it, if we have no potential for the runoff, everything is kosher. However, if the passer throws to number 66, which is the offensive lineman, and there is no eligible receiver in the area and he drops it, the clock stops by an illegal means, meaning an illegal forward pass to an ineligible receiver. The offense will be penalized and the defense will have the option for a 10-second runoff. If the foul doesn't cause the clock to stop as an illegal forward pass would, but the administration caused a penalty to stop it as in a holding, there is no runoff. However, also, an eligible runoff for a false start or a snap infraction or a dead ball foul that prevents the next play from starting. There is also a 10-second runoff for that. So basically, if a lineman does a false start on purpose for stopping the clock, there is a 10-second runoff. If the clock is running at the time of the foul, there is a runoff option because a foul is the reason that the clock has stopped. If, however, the clock is not running because of a previous incomplete pass or a timeout or whatever you have, there is no runoff option. Now let's get into what happens for the game clock administration, and this has happened to the Lions in a previous game, and we'll break this down for you. Game clock administration, Section 5, Article 2 of the NFL Rulebook, the 10-second runoff. When a change ruling results in a running clock for plays that begin after the 2-minute warning, the clock is reset to the time when the play should have ended, and the clock will run for 10 seconds from the reset time. If there is less than 10 seconds remaining in the half or game, the game will end on the 10-second runoff. Note, neither team may decline a 10-second runoff under this article, but either team can avoid a 10-second runoff by taking a charged team timeout. If the 10-second runoff is avoided, the game clock will be reset to the time and when the play should have ended and will start at the snap. Now, let's get into it when this rule has been to the detriment of the Lions. The Lions fell victim to this runoff rule a few years ago versus the Atlanta Falcons. There was a booth review for a scoring play by Golden Tate at the end of the game that was overturned by the officials. Because he was ruled down prior to crossing the goal line with 7 seconds left on the clock, the Lions were out of timeouts. So they reset the ball and started the clock, and the 10-second runoff ended the game. Well, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it, the 10-second runoff rule. We know how it applies now and how it is made to prevent teams from taking advantage of falling down or faking an injury to stop the clock at the end of the game. If a team doesn't have timeouts, you cannot do that. If so, the clock will run for 10 seconds and it could potentially end the game. So for all y'all out there, if you don't know, now you know. That's how the 10-second rule is done. Now let's get back to the Die Hard Den podcast with my man, Seany J.
All right, we're back from Now You Know. Now it's time to go on to the next one. Lions, Redskins, my man, what you got for this game? Who do you think is going to win and what the score is going to be?
Well, I don't care what the score is. The Lions better beat the Redskins. The Redskins are horrible. I mean, they're playing a rookie quarterback who, Ohio State quarterbacks don't do well in the NFL anyway. Tell me one quarterback from one quarterback from Ohio State has done well. That's what I thought.
NFL,
yes.
I really don't know.
Exactly. That's my point. Not one. They are awesome at college, but when they get in the pros, they don't do nothing. And like I said, it's going the same way of Dwayne Haskins, Next Buckeye bus, I call it. So the Lions better blow out the Redskins. They got an ancient running back in 34-year-old Adrian Peterson, who's leading in rushing. He wants to play till he's 50. He needs to with his financial situation the way it is. Don't mean diss the man, but I'm just telling like it is. Hard-hitting journalist. You got to stick to the facts. You can't sugarcoat things. Lions better win. I mean, I hate the Redskins. The Redskins used to dominate the Lions, but the Lions won the last 4 games against the Redskins. Let's make it 5. And we broke the curse of RFK, or Washington, rather. We won there 6 years ago. Jim Schwartz led us into that victory, the first victory in history that we had in Washington. So that monkey's off our back. I think the Lions should win this game 28-17.
I will go with the Lions as well, and I will take your score, and I will say 28-20. Lions will win on Sunday.
Give me a win.
All right. Give me a win. That's all we want. Now it's time to get on out of here. Let's give the people our social media information so they can get a hold of us. How can they find you, my man, Seany J, on social media?
Well, I'm mainly on Facebook. You can look me up, Sharon Jennings, on Facebook. I run the Detroit Lions Truest fan page. I will be happy to add you if you want to join. And we also have the Die Hard Den page now on Facebook, which I'm also running. You can join and you can, listen to our podcast. I'm going to start doing some more postings, the same postings I do in the group. Let's get this page going.
Right. Like Sean said, we do have our new Die Hard Den podcast page up on Facebook. You can also find me, Curtis Steele, on Twitter. CurtisTeele14 on Twitter and Instagram. And you can follow the Die Hard Den podcast on Twitter at Die Hard Den Pod C1. You can follow the show on Instagram. We're going to start posting some pictures on there where I'll take some pictures of myself recording and some other posts we're going to put on Instagram at Die Hard Den podcast on Instagram as well. And you can always email the show, dieharddenpodcast@gmail.com. And I want to thank my individuals in the Detroit Lions Die Hard fan page who participated in the poll today. Thank you very much. I will definitely use you in more polls going forward. I value your opinion. and we will post some of these polls on our, Die Hard Den podcast page. And for my man, Seany J, we want to thank you for listening. Now, for next week, I will be on my 25th anniversary cruise. So we will not have a show next week after the Redskins game. We will have a show the following week after the Thanksgiving game. So we don't have a show next week. I'm celebrating with my family. We're going on a cruise to Jamaica, and my wife will kill me if I try to shoot a podcast while I'm out in the middle of the ocean with Seany J. So
tell her she just need 45 minutes of free time. Go to the beach, go shopping. Let her give you 45 minutes to do the show.
But I'll be in the middle of the ocean on a cruise, enjoying my family and my wife and my nephew and my son, and we were celebrating as a family. So we're gonna have some good times. So, but I will happily be back to record the following week after the Thanksgiving games. So, for my man Seany J, this is Kurt Steele, and we appreciate you listening to the Die Hard Den podcast, and we are out.
Well, spoiled again by Dallas. Coming up on this edition of the Die Hard Den podcast, Seany J and I break down the Lions' loss to the Dallas Cowboys on Sunday. We have a Now You Know segment that covers the 10-second runoff. And we look at should the Lions shut down Matthew Stafford for the rest of the season. All this and more coming up on this edition of the Die Hard Den podcast. Watch out. Here comes that roar.
What up, though? This is Kurt Steele, and welcome to this edition of the Die Hard Den podcast. And as always, I'm with my man, Seany J.
What's happening, Curtis? How you doing?
Hey, man, everything's all right. Now, this week was a rough one for me. I pretty much despised the team in Dallas, so it was kind of rough watching the game. But, it is what it is. I take it with a grain of salt, but other than that, hey, man, we got some things to talk about. But let's start the show off on a positive note. So, as always, it is time to tell me something good. Now, I have a couple of tell me something goods this week that one of them was really near and dear to my heart because of the fact that, if you don't know, I was in the military for 26 years. Well, first, we're going to start with the Lions rookies. On Monday, they served dinner at Ford Field to families from nonprofit organizations. Now, if you know about nonprofits, most times these are people who service people from underserved or underprivileged individuals. So for the Lions rookies and the Lions organization, in the spirit of giving, we're almost at the Thanksgiving time. A couple weeks from now, it'll be Thanksgiving. We did it a little early. The Lions did. However, it still means a lot for them to give back to their community. And I applaud the Lions and their rookies for showing up to Ford Field to do that community outreach. However, there's one more thing. Veterans Day just passed. And throughout the month of November, the NFL does salute the service. And this year, the Lions really did something special for a group of veterans that most people really don't think that they're still alive. But there are some that's few and far between alive. Now, this is what the Lions did. The Lions teamed up with the Lions Alumni Association and a group called Talents Out. And that's a nonprofit who they do hero flights. So basically what they did is they flew 70 veterans total from the World War II, Korea, and Vietnam War eras to Washington, D.C., to the war memorials. So they can go and visit. And a lot of these veterans that served in those wars had never been to D.C. to visit the war memorials.
Wow, that's interesting.
And the craziest thing is that one of the veterans in the group with the Lions, and it was 10 Lions legends went with those guys. So it just wasn't the veterans themselves, but the Lions organization, and the alumni went out there to DC with these individuals and got to, got to participate in this event and got to walk around with these veterans, talk to them. And one of the veterans on the tour, his picture was on one of the memorials. So this is, something that was probably really surreal for the veteran and the player who was with him to witness all this. If you want to go out and check this, out online, you can go to lions.com and look at the honor flight. The video is up on DetroitLions.com and check it out. It's very special. And again, to my brothers and sisters in arms who served in the military, thank you for your service. We really appreciate that. And happy belated Veterans Day to my brothers and sisters in arms.
Let me say quickly, I'm happy the NFL is doing this. They do it more so. You don't see the other major sports leagues like the NBA or NHL or Major League Baseball doing this. So I'm glad the NFL is doing it. And I hope they, seems to me like the veterans who suffer the most, who were neglected the most, were the Vietnam era veterans. I think, I think they've been, I don't know why that is. Why you think Vietnam veterans are mistreated so badly?
Well, it was a very anti-war society in America at that time. You're looking at the time where it was, the time of the hippie and make love, not war. And they just weren't honored. It was a conflict that many people in the U.S. did not think we belonged in that conflict. So the veterans were treated very badly coming back from Vietnam. It wasn't what we have now, the fanfare. And, I've served 2 tours in Afghanistan and, got a hero's welcome when I came in, or, I couldn't buy a meal in the airport, or if I was in uniform or whatever. And I appreciate the support. But I thank a Vietnam veteran every time I see one. Me being a veteran myself, I know the history of that conflict and how individuals were treated. So I thank a Vietnam veteran every time I see one. If they didn't wear a hat or anything like that. So,
and before we move on to Lions, Curtis, I want to say ask you quickly. Did you ever see the movie Dead Presidents?
Yes, I did.
That's an excellent movie.
Yeah. But some of that stuff is very true of that Vietnam era. I have a friend of mine's father who still fights with the VA to this day to get his rating from the Vietnam era, and it's sad, but I still honor those guys. I make it a point to go out of my way to recognize the Vietnam era vets because of the way they were treated when they returned back to the country from serving over there. So now got that out the way. Thank you to the veterans, and now it is time to go on the ball this week. Lions, Cowboys, offensive side of the ball. I will say this, from what I viewed on TV, now he didn't have a perfect day, but Driscoll played solid. 15 for 26, 209, 2 touchdowns, sacked 3 times. He wasn't consistent all day as a passer, but he did enough. He didn't have a terrible game. I mean, the team was right in there, within 8 points of the Cowboys at the end of the game. What do you think about Jeff Driscoll?
There had good seats. Actually, my company provided a suite for us. One of the luxury suites on the 50-yard line. It was an awesome view, and Driscoll, he did some good things. Like I said, he threw for 2 TDs, and he also ran for 1. Let's not forget about that. But I think, he has the talent, he has the intangibles. He has good size, strong arm, and he good speed and mobility, athletic ability for a big guy. But I think he was a little tentative at times out there. That's kind of experience. We were yelling, run, run, run. He opened the field, but he was still looking downfield for a receiver when he had 20-yard open field in front of him. So, I think he has a strong arm. What they say about young quarterbacks with strong arms, that they can thread the needle all the time. He didn't have any turnovers. I give him credit for that. But I think he should have ran a few more times than he did. because he could have had a 100-yard game if he took when he ran when the Cowboys, gave him 20 yards of field to run with.
Mhm.
But otherwise, he did play a pretty good game. They didn't lose the game because of him. But also, I give shout out to my boy Bo. Bo Scarborough. I always like Scarborough. I liked him a lot. I'm glad that he's on the Lions. I want the Lions to get him. They got him. But the question about Scarborough is not talent.
Mhm.
Is can he stay healthy? I mean,
Right.
just like Kerryon Johnson, Bo's been injured in high school. He's been injured in college. So can he survive in the NFL? That's always the question. That's why he was drafted so low. He had the talent is there, but can he stay healthy?
Right. Speaking of Bo Scarborough, yeah, he had a good game. 55 yards in the debut on 14 carries, a little over 3 yards a carry, and a touchdown. So he did have a solid debut. Now running the ball, the Lions outrushed the Cowboys, which having Zeke Elliott actually in the game was pretty rare. The Lions had 121 on the ground, and the Cowboys only ran for 75 yards with Zeke Elliott. Now Frank Ragnow, it was he left with a concussion late in the game. Late in the second half, and also Nick Bowden left the game early in the game with a knee injury. The offense really kind of sputtered their first half. Sputtered the whole game. They played good in spurts. Made some plays when they needed to. I just think that with the amount of injuries and a lack of continuity on the offense was really, and I would say some up and down inconsistent play by Driscoll, like you were saying, needed to run more, was the reason why the offense really couldn't put that final drive together to get back into the game. They just weren't have a consistent rhythm throughout the game. They had it in spurts, but not totally a whole game where it was one fluid game plan with it whole game.
Yeah, and the injury bug has really bit the Lions hard this year. Stafford's out, Kerryon's out, several players are out. And you mentioned that Frank Ragnow went out for concussion. He's in protocol, and so is Trey Flowers, the poor man's Reggie White, the best agent. He played good. I was reading his PFF score. He actually had a pretty good game against all-pro tackle Tyron Smith. But the concussions, I actually question for you. It's like the concussions are on the rise, at least with the Lions and other teams. This new helmet design, it's not really protecting you any more than the old helmet did, huh?
I would say that concussions are on the rise, and the question is that wasn't the new helmet supposed to help with concussions?
Exactly.
And lessen the amount of them. So, and I want to say this right quick, and hey, I'm not going to dwell on it. Maybe Antonio Brown had a point with his helmet. Maybe he did. Who knows? You know what I'm saying? Maybe he had a valid issue with the helmet. He didn't want to change and it was for a good reason. But now we've got the offense out the way. Now let's go defend the den. Woo! It was rough, brother.
Yes, it was.
The two bright spots for me, before we get into the negative, Slay had a good game against Cooper, held him to 3 catches on 8 targets for 38 yards. For a Cooper, who's a number 1 receiver, that's a very, very slow day. And like we said, the Cowboys only rushed for 75 yards for this game. Now, here's the negative. Gave up 444 passing yards and 3 TDs to Dak Prescott. He had his best day passing in his career on Sunday. I mean, it was ridiculous. I mean, he couldn't throw the ball to Cooper, but our 2 big name free agents who played so well earlier in the year, I mean, they were getting torched.
They were.
Melvin and Coleman were getting lit up all game. Randall Cobb and I forget the other guy's name. Gallup were really killing those guys. It was very hard to watch. A little QB pressure. Now I will say this, and this is probably you. They did blitz more on Sunday than they have in a long time. However, it only yielded 1 sack because they blitzed more than they have in a long time. And they were getting pressured, but it only got to him once. And, Tracy Walker gave it a go, but he ended up coming out the game again. Like you said, Trey Flowers came out the game with a concussion. Just a lot of injuries on the defensive side of the ball already coming into the game with Deshaun Hand and a couple other guys. Walker was not 100% coming into the game. I think he just gave it the old try to see if he can get out there and play because he wants to be on the field. He's a gamer like that. But it was just overall horrible day in the pass defense. What do you say, my man?
Exactly. It was, I was once had a bird's eye view. That crossing pattern, I watched that. I mean, a guy, there was nobody on the one side of the field. He had 30 yards to run, before a Lion got over there. I mean, it's terrible. Like, Lions had no defenders on that side of the field. Guys are wide open. I mean, the pass rush goes beyond that. What's wrong with our secondary? I mean, like you said, Melvin.
And coming into the season, that was supposed to be a strong suit.
Yes.
Fast, quick secondary.
Exactly.
It's just not working, my man, right now. It is. I don't know what to tell you. I can't explain it because the talent is there. So I
maybe blitzing, but we're not getting there like we should. Even though we're blitzing, we're still not getting through to the quarterback enough. Even though we are blitzing. And I watched the game. People we watched the game with. Prescott still had too much time, even when the blitz came. The Cowboys picked up the Lions blitz well. I mean, so even though we're blitzing, we're still not getting there. Prescott had way too much time to throw the ball. Still, it was 1 sack, like you said. I still want more pressure, more aggressive. Yeah, I like the blitzing, but you still got to finish, get there. I was disappointed. The big guy, John Atkins, he missed a sack. He had him. He didn't wrap him up and try to throw him down. He just let him slip out of his hands.
Yeah,
oh my God.
Dak Prescott's not a small guy. So you're not going to fling him to the ground. He's got a strong base. I mean, he's a pretty solid guy for a quarterback. So
yeah, he's his good size. Yeah.
Yeah, you're not going to push him over and think he's going to just fall over and take a sack. He's a sturdy guy, so I don't know what to say. I just think that the play needs to be more consistent. Right now, I can't say we don't have the talent because the talent is there. We may be a little young in as far as the backing of the secondary at the safety position, but we got 3 experienced starting corners. I just don't see having really an excuse for the best secondary play. I just don't have one.
Yeah, it's supposed to be so fast, according to Kent Lee Platt, the PFF expert for the Lions, and he's an analytical expert. He said the Lions had the fastest secondary they ever had, and so far that speed hasn't really helped because the receivers have been that much faster. Cowboy receivers are wide open, nobody around them. So, my God, where is the secondary?
Yeah, it was terrible. Looking at the special teams, I think, and you really don't want this because of the fact that means your offense isn't scoring a lot of points. Sam Martin did have a good day punting. He had 6 punts, and 4 of them were end up down inside the 20-yard line. So that's, for a punter, that's a pretty good game. I can't really say a lot about, Prater. He made all of his extra points. Agnew was having a decent game returning the ball before he got injured and went out with a leg injury. So it was, even the injury book hit the special teams. It wasn't just the offense and defense. It hit the special teams as well.
Yeah.
It was just a bad time for that injury bug. It was like a mass unit out there. And it was just like, the medicals team was very busy for the Lions during this game. And I would say this for the Cowboys too. Watching at home, they did have some guys that went out as well. I'm not really concerned about the Cowboys having players hurt, but I don't want anybody to have a career-ending injury. But, it's more significant for me for the Lions because that's who I'm watching the game for. I'm not watching the game for the Cowboys. So I would just say that, hey, one of those things where, we're going to look at the injury report that comes out. The first one comes out tomorrow afternoon. Well, it would be today when this podcast posts on Wednesday. So we'll see what we're looking like as far as the injury report heading into next week versus the Redskins. So, it looks like it's going to be thin as well. But there you go. We have it. That's Defend the Den. Now it is time for 2 points conversing. Now this week, we got some topics to talk about, my man. So let's get into it. Now, I posted a Facebook poll on the Detroit Lions Die Hard fan book page, and I asked the question. My question was, Should the Lions shut down Matthew Stafford and the other key injured starters for the rest of the season because of the fact that they're pretty much mathematically eliminated from the playoffs at this point? And I got 62 responses. I got 56 yes and 6 no. So, my man, Seany J, do you think the Lions should shut those key starters down for the rest of the season?
I say yes once they're officially eliminated from the playoffs. Now, they still got a slim chance, maybe 1% or 0.5% chance. When it's totally over, I say yes. But Stafford says he doesn't want to shut it down. He wants to get back in there. It shows Stafford's heart and competitiveness. Even though the team's not going anywhere this year, he still wants to get out there and play. But I want to see him get healthy. I want his back, his whole body to heal. His back, his hip, his whole body. I mean, he's taking a beating.
Right.
I want him to heal healthy. And I want to see, if we're going to make a run, I want to see what the young guys can do, like Jeff Driscoll and Bo Scarborough, even Bo Benchwap. I want to see my boy, other Bo, get in there, who I've been pining for all year, all season. I thought he'd be a starter, but young guys, the young guys play, because that's why I don't want to see the Lions tank. Most fans say, well, just tank the rest of the game so you get a high draft pick. No, because young men, jobs on the line. You don't know what they can do, or you don't know if they can play or not. If you tell them to lay down and tank, coaches' jobs on the line, players' jobs on the line. Nobody can tank, even though that's what the fans and the media want to see from the Lions. I'd say win. We try to win, still win. I don't care if you're out the playoffs, still win. And what I heard years ago from some smart ass analysts, he says, well, good teams don't need a whole lot of high draft picks to be good. Well, so let's win and we'll pick where we pick, So don't lose on purpose just so you be in the top 5. That's my thing.
Right. I would agree with you as far as once they're mathematically eliminated, I never want to see a team tank to get a higher draft pick. I want you to do your job, and I want you to play as hard as you can. If you play as hard as you can and you lose and you gave it all you got, that's one thing. But if you go out there and you just lay an egg because you want to get a higher draft pick, that's not something I can sign up for. I don't want anyone to purposely lose.
Right.
Don't do that. It's not a good precedent to set. It's not a good example to set for younger players. They're watching you, kids in high school and college. That whole tanking thing, that's, to me, that's like point shaving. And that's why in the NBA they have a lottery. So, teams won't get the number 1 draft pick because of the fact that they just tanked the whole season.
Yes.
I don't see the NFL going to a draft lottery. I don't see that in the future. I don't see that ever being approved in the CBA. But yeah, I think the Lions should rest those guys once they are mathematically eliminated. But I still want those guys who are playing to play hard and play to win.
Yes, I do too.
Now, next question. You said it earlier in the game, earlier in the show, that you were at Ford Field watching the game. Now, I will tell you, watching at home, I was so embarrassed. It sounded like a Cowboys home game. You can hear them cheering and, they make a play. And I'm like, what's going on? It was, I thought we were playing at AT&T Stadium. What was the atmosphere like there at Ford Field, my guy?
Yeah, it was a lot of Cowboy fans there. I saw them walking around the concourse, walking outside the stadium. There was about 10 to 20, I would say about 10 to 20,000 Cowboy fans at the game. They were loud, but they were awfully quiet when the Lions would score, making big plays. That's why I wanted to win so bad. Let's sit them back, heads down, the tails between their legs. Like I said, they were so obnoxious. I wanted to really sock one. I'm a big guy. I would have knocked one out. Yeah, I just want to knock one out. Just take that smug look off his face. Anyway, I was a good sport. I promised my mama wouldn't do that. So I couldn't throw any punches. But they could be so just like Packer fans or Ohio State Buckeye fans.
Yeah.
See why the Cowboys are hated, because they feel so entitled. And I heard years ago somebody, a former player said, "Isn't that the most arrogant thing ever to call yourself playing America's team?" I mean, right. Yeah. I used to like the Cowboys, but not again. They're like, I'm viewing them like Ohio State or Notre Dame or Green Bay, or the New York Yankees, a team you love to hate, because there were a lot of Cowboy fans there. So
yeah, I will say this. It was quite embarrassing. And one thing I did see, and I don't know if you saw this on social media. Now, you know that it's rumored that the owner of Amazon was trying to. This is only a rumor, a conjecture that he's trying to buy the Lions, and it was some fans on Facebook was calling for Lions fans to force Martha Firestone's hand to sell the team and boycott the game on on Thanksgiving. Don't show up at the game, kind of like really force her hand to kind of sell the team. Like the Fords have owned this team long enough, and they haven't had any success. That kind of forced them out of the ownership by not supporting the team.
I did see that, and I posted that in the group, Lions Truest Fan Group, and some people were, yeah, they're all for it. Others say, well, be careful what you ask for, because especially if a guy who lives out of town, he might move the team away. So and I also read an interesting article, just because a new owner buys a team that's bad, it doesn't automatically mean they're going to become successful. So there's still some things, there's some positives and negatives, about that.
All right. Now, this is a Lions podcast. However, there's one thing I really want to talk about that happened on Thursday Night Football. Unless you've been living under a rock, you should know about the Myles Garrett, Mason Rudolph fight that happened, where in the end of the fight was really when Myles Garrett took off Mason Rudolph's helmet and hit him in the head with it. Myles Garrett has been suspended indefinitely. Definitely won't see him, in my opinion, for the rest of this season, and probably for a few games next season. Now, there's people out there saying that Mason Rudolph kind of really started it when he tried to pull off Myles Garrett's helmet when they were on the ground. 8 seconds in the game, was there really necessity for Myles Garrett to hit Mason Rudolph after he threw a pass? He was playing the game. It happens, but, the Steelers were already losing. Rudolph had a terrible game. Was a frustration on Rudolph's part, and then that led to the bigger problem where Garrett retaliated with those poor decisions. I don't know, but the optics of it for Myles Garrett are terrible. What do you think about that situation?
Mason Rudolph did start it. He did try to take his helmet off on the ground. And if you look at the play and the stills been all over social media, Mason hit Garrett in the nuts twice. He kicked him in the nuts while he was on the ground. Then he tried to punch him in the nuts. That's when Garrett let him have his own helmet. Bam! And Mason Rudolph was fined over $30,000 for his part in the fight. He should get some suspension. He should have missed some games too, in my opinion. So everybody, they did go try and play the victim again, but Mason Rudolph started the whole damn thing. So he should get at least 6 games, just like Gary did, in my opinion.
Right. Now, I will say this. Now, in my opinion, if that would have happened in Pittsburgh, Myles Garrett wouldn't have got out of town. Myles Garrett would have ended up probably spending the night in jail for assault, because what he did was technically assault. I mean, in every sense of the word, he used a helmet as a weapon and struck another player with it. Now, it was the air hole at the bottom of the helmet, the opening, he did, little some of the ear pad on him. But if he hit him with that, if he would have hit him with the crown of the helmet, that could have went totally different. At the size of Myles Garrett, and if he just swung that with some force and hit him in the face with it with the crown of the helmet and the temple, he could have killed Mason Rudolph with that helmet easily. I mean, Myles Garrett is a big individual. So I would say this. Luckily, none of that stuff happened. But I wouldn't be surprised if there's some legal action taken against Myles Garrett down the line.
Mason Rudolph always said he wasn't going to press charges. He thought about it, but he said he's not going to do it. Plus, he knows he's partially guilty or responsible too. They review his actions too. Look, man, you kicked the man in the nuts while he's on the ground. Then you hit him with some of the nuts. So you brought this on yourself. It's self-defense on Garrett's part.
Right.
Let me ask you, what's worse? What happened last Thursday night, or years ago when Joe Turkey Jones slammed Terry Bradshaw on his head at the game, Cleveland-Pittsburgh?
Oh. That's a hard one because both could have paralyzed either man,
Yes.
and or could have killed either man because he could have snapped Bradshaw's neck and could have killed him. I'm at an even draw with that one, man. They're both heinous acts. Where the difference for me is that Myles Garrett used a weapon in his case.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's my only. He used that helmet as a weapon, and that's would have me leaning towards the Myles Garrett incident as being somewhat worse because of the weapon factor. But they both were very vile and heinous acts, violent acts on the football field. And there's football is a violent sport enough as it is, but we don't need that type of aggression as far as, violent acts towards each other. That's really not part of the game. That stuff is not supposed to be part of the game. So I don't get it. You know what I'm saying? But hey, it is what it is. That's what we got this week for 2 Points Conversing. So when we get back from the break, my man Seany J is gonna do a outright profile on a high-flying shutdown corner in Lions history.